Hi and welcome to another episode here on the 10x Leadership channel. This week what we're going to cover is how to catch your team doing something right and the incredible benefits that you'll get from doing exactly that. So what we're actually going to look at, it is about catching people, your team doing the right things, but what we're actually going to look at is the impact of feedback. And as you can see here, we've got, as we talked about in the previous episode, so episode 9, how to make your team do exactly what you want. If you haven't seen it, I'll put a link down in the description. It's all about an adult to adult relationship, and if you've got an adult to adult relationship, that's fantastic. And inevitably, as you work together, there's going to be feedback. I've shown it here as feedback from the leader to the member of staff, but actually, in reality, it's going to be two ways. And the really interesting thing about feedback is that depending on the ratio that you give feedback, so the amount of positive to negative feedback that you give, that has an impact on confidence and motivation of, well, all humans, but in this case members of your team. And there is a magic ratio that you need to work with, and that is 3-to-1. So that's 3 positive comments or 3 bits of positive feedback for every negative bit of feedback. And the reason for that is because negative feedback has a much greater impact. So in order to balance that off, you need to give 3 bits of positive feedback. And I'm just going to show you now, I suppose, a few scenarios and how that plays out in terms of impact on confidence and motivation of your team if you get it wrong, and also if you get it right. So we've got a chart here. The line in the center is 0, so that's retaining somebody's motivation and confidence. Anything above it is increasing it, anything below it is decreasing it. And the x-axis, so from left to right, that could be anything, but let's just work on the basis that each line represents a day. So let's look at some scenarios. So you will have come across leaders who think that there is no need to give any praise, any feedback, and all they do is they focus on the negatives, they focus on the critical factors, the things they want to pick up on to stop people doing that in the future, and to encourage them to do things right, from that point onwards. You might be a leader like that yourself. Hopefully not, but if you are, you will see the impact that you're having on individuals in a second. So for somebody who only provides negative feedback or provides only criticism, no praise, very, very quickly what's going to happen is that's going to have a negative impact. You can see that's declining quite quickly. I think it's something like less than, if we assume those are days across the middle there, something like less than a fortnight, somebody would be significantly poorer in terms of confidence and motivation if all you ever give is criticism. Equally applies to you, doesn't it? If your leader is only ever providing you with a critique of what's happening, never any praise, very, very quickly your confidence and motivation is going to dip. So, even if we assume that person who came to your team started off quite confident, that's where the 0 line is, very, very quickly, if all you ever do is criticise, that confidence and motivation is going to go right down the pan. So how about those who have a more balanced approach to providing feedback then? So again, there are lots of leaders out there, and I know I've done it myself in the past, where you think, well, as long as I'm balancing off criticism and areas for improvement with praise, that's great. That will work. But as you saw on the previous slide, that isn't true. There is the negative feedback has a much greater impact than the positive feedback. So again, if we look at somebody new into your team, they come in, they're confident and motivated. That's the 0 line. Again, very, very quickly. This is 20 days, I think, from left to right. Within 20 days, if all you do is provide balanced feedback, equal criticism and praise, again, they are significantly going to lose confidence and motivation. So clearly that's not the approach to take either. Even if you go for 2 bits of praise for every piece of criticism, as you'll see, that isn't going to fix things either. All it does is keep it level. So if you imagine you come into a team and your boss is giving you a couple of bits of praise, a little bit every time you have a bit of criticism. Doesn't have to be tied, by the way. This is just overall. You're not going to dip, but equally you're not going to get any better. You're not going to be more confident and more motivated. But equally, it's not going to have a detrimental impact. I mean, the problem with that is it's really on a knife edge, isn't it? If if the balance tips, and then you as a leader stop giving 2 bits of praise, and then sometimes only give 1 bit of praise, and that's balanced off. In fact, not balanced off by criticism, but there's criticism and praise, but there's only 1 piece of praise for every bit of criticism. Before you know it, that person's going to drop. And if all you ever do, the best you ever do, is provide 2 bits of positive feedback per 1 bit of negative criticism, they're not going to recover. So as you saw on the previous slide, the trick, the golden ratio here is to give 3 bits of praise for every bit of criticism. And as you can see from that green line, what's going to happen then is that individual's confidence and motivation is going to increase. Now, let me just be clear about something. So this isn't about every time you give somebody a negative bit of criticism, you have to give them 3 bits of positive praise at the same time. It's about, in a given day, in a given week, the balance needs to be that, quite rightly, you'll be pointing out things that they need to improve. But if you're doing that, don't think that that's going to motivate them on its own. It isn't. You need to balance that off, and if you really want to improve their confidence and motivation, you need to make sure that you're also giving them 3 bits of praise. Hopefully that makes some sense. The other thing to say, though, is this isn't just any praise. This is genuine praise. It's for things that they really have done that make a difference, that are good. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be earth-shattering changes or improvements. And if they're completely new to your team or new to the work, it might be that you're just praising the small things to begin with. But again, just keep thinking about, well, how am I doing in terms of that ratio? Am I giving enough praise? Am I giving significantly more praise for all of the things that I'm talking about where they need to improve? And of course, it also depends on how you give the praise or the feedback, both in terms of content. It's got to be fair and reasonable, and you've also got to do it in the right way, with the right approach, the right attitude, the right tone of voice, etc., etc., etc. And we'll cover some of those things in future videos, I'm sure. but just make sure this is genuine praise. Otherwise, the individual will just see through it. They know that it's just a tick box exercise. You see that from leaders who really don't know how to interact with their team and haven't got any emotional intelligence. They've got a checklist of things that they know they're supposed to do. They're supposed to ask how your weekend was, or how you're getting on, but they don't listen to the answer because they're only interested in going through the motions. So people are really intelligent. Do not do that. Make sure that any praise that you give is genuine praise, and equally, of course, make sure that any criticism and areas for improvement that you talk about are genuine, they are reasonable, and that you also help them understand how they can get better, not just a criticism. And the great thing is, if you do this, and I've been doing it and I regularly do this, then what happens is that if you praise 3 times more than you criticize, you're going to get a happier, more confident and more motivated team. I say, I've done it, I know it works, give it a go. You might be skeptical, but it really, really does work. There's research and science out there that proves it. As ever, I hope you found this video useful. Deliberately shorter video this week. I think last week's was some like 20 to 40 minutes. So I thought I'd just go with a shorter video with a really practical piece of advice that can have a really great positive impact on your team. And also, of course, don't forget, share it with your boss. You might be a leader, but you're also a human, so you need the same sort of feedback in the same sorts of proportions to enable you to be more motivated and more confident as well. So if you're not getting that, make sure you talk to your boss, send them the video, send them the link, and I will tell them about the reasons for giving more praise than you do criticism. And then hopefully that will make you feel better. And imagine what you can do as a team when you're all far more motivated and far more confident. You'll have a fabulous time. I say hopefully that was useful. If you found it useful, please share, please like, please subscribe, and please keep coming back for future videos. I've got plenty more that I want to share with you. Thank you very much. See you in the next video.